Federal politicians from Victoria, Liberal Senator James Paterson, Labor Senator Kimberley Kitching. James, you've got Victoria's imposed the curfew, it's banned people from visiting anyone, it's cancelled Parliament last week, the Legislative Assembly at any rate, stopped protests, banned people from going 5 kilometres from their home unless to work, and this mask ban. Are you worried at all about this trend?
To be candid, Andrew, yes, I am worried about this. Let's think about, this footage is very distressing to watch, obviously, but let's think about what these people are accused of doing. They're accused of doing something that only a few weeks ago, let alone a few months ago, was perfectly lawful, uncontroversial behaviour, and no one could have ever envisaged that you would soon be subject to not only arrest, but potentially physical force from a police officer for not complying with. There's a daily readout of all the horrible, heinous crimes that Victorians have committed by the police commissioner every day. And yesterday, one of the heinous crimes that was alleged to have occurred was that a young couple with a child decided to go to a different park rather than the park closest to their home. And this was cited as an example as shocking behaviour. I mean, jail is too good for these horrible criminals. I mean, I think they should be facing capital offences. I mean, it's really got quite ridiculous, Andrew. I think the police need to take a very serious thought about how they're approaching this. They're being very draconian on people who are really just trying to get along with some semblance of normality. I think they have to be much more compassionate and considerate in the enforcement of these laws. Otherwise, they will undermine public confidence in all of them.
Yeah, well, that couple wanted to go to a playground with their child. I don't understand why playgrounds, by the way, are fenced off either. I mean, it's just insane. Kimberley, is it all going too far?
Look, I mean, I think we're all hoping that the next 5 weeks is going to really lower those case numbers. I think the mask rule look, it really has to be universal in order for it to have effect. I do, obviously there are some exemptions to it. So if you have a medical excuse not to wear a mask, respiratory illness, etc., then you don't have to. But otherwise, everyone else is wearing a mask. I think that when interacting
Kimberley, most
with the
countries
police,
overseas with mask bans don't insist on wearing them outside, only inside.
Well, I think that there's been some changes in that in Europe in the last few days. So I think that there is some attempt to do this. We are hoping it's only going to be 5 weeks. I think the Victoria Police are at the front line trying to do a good job. Obviously, there should be, firstly, I don't think people should be kicking police officers, no matter how vehemently they disagree with, the direction the police officer is giving them. I don't think they should be Victoria Police or any police force.
Totally agree with you. But should a police officer have his hands wrapped around the neck of a woman?
Well, I think that there should be, that obviously the Victoria Police are trained to a very high level, and they should remember, obviously when they go out, they remember that training.
No, I got that, but should a police officer have his hands around the neck of a woman who simply didn't have a mask on outside?
Look, I think these are. Well, I think we're also not. Obviously that video, as James points out, that video is distressing to watch. I found it very distressing to watch.
It's a pretty, I know, but it's a pretty simple question. James, should a police officer have his... the woman behaved badly, I'm with you. But should a police officer have his hands around the neck of a woman?
Well, she kicked the female police officer as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Andrew, the rule of law applies to everyone, and it's no exemptions for you if you don't like to comply. But apparently, media reporting has suggested that this woman, in fact, did have a medical ground for not wearing a mask. And really, do we want to see women in chokeholds on the ground with a police officer physically on top of them for the crime of going outside and not having a mask? Jeez. I mean, I'd support mask wearing as well. I happily do it myself. I encourage others to do so. But I don't think it's not good for the police or the community to this end in chokeholds on the pavement.
Kimberley, talking about bad behaviour, we've got Labor frontbencher Kristina Keneally last week accused by Channel 9's Today Show of shouting at a female producer. She rang him up and they alleged something between a shout and a scream, is what they said, because Keneally didn't think the show was asking the right hard questions of Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton. Now, Keneally denies shouting and screaming and says the allegation is a gendered take. First of all, I'm confused. What does a gendered take mean in this circumstance, do you think?
Well, look, I think if we firstly, I don't want to run commentary on, people's phone conversations. Obviously, if we are generally talking about terse conversations, then I think lots of people have terse conversations, and across, both male and female. I think, I think that, I haven't heard Kristina be hostile to anyone other than Liberals in the Senate chamber.
Kimberly,
where she's doing her job as the Deputy
TV,
Leader of the Labor Party, holding the government to account. I think, I think that the substantive issue is that Kristina, in her other job, as the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, is also trying to get to the bottom of what happened with the Ruby Princess. And
well,
I think,
nice recovery there, nice recovery, Kimberly. But I'm going to keep this tape in my little vault and play it at you to your embarrassment. James, Kimberly Kitching, he says, she's just trying to hold the government to account and all that kind of stuff. Never heard Kristina Keneally raise her voice to anyone. Is this the Labor way, mate, ringing up producer?
Well, Andrew, when your producer alerted me to this topic tonight and told me that KK had been accused of raising their voice to a producer, I thought, surely not. Kimberly Kitching would not do such a thing. But, of course, she's not the only KK in the Senate. And maybe they've got a good cop, bad cop arrangement going on here, a angel devil arrangement going on here. And KK metes out punishment to the other KKs, metes out punishment to 20-year-old producers, apparently, who need to be on the receiving end of this. I don't know the truth of these reports, Andrew. It's just been speculated in the media. I'm sure if a male Liberal senator was accused of the same thing, Kristina Keneally would be very sympathetic to them and would defend their interests and say, we don't know the truth of this.
I still don't get the gendered take business, but anyway, who knows? Oh, just quickly to Kimberly, I know you both would feel very strongly about this. Jimmy Lai, the Hong Kong publisher, was on my show a couple of months ago. I warned him, China's new national security law crushing the freedoms of Hong Kong. They will go for you, Jimmy. And he said, I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to cow to China. I've got to do what's right. Now being arrested, 200 police stormed through his newspaper, the second most popular in Hong Kong. I mean, really, you've got to be upset about that.
I think it's utterly reprehensible behaviour. I think those national security laws are terrible, and just, such the effect they're having in Hong Kong, but also around the world. And what I think is terrible about the Jimmy Lai's situation is, of course, he has said, I'm happy to give up a lot for my, for freedom and for democracy. But I think they've arrested his children as well. So they know that they're able to get to him through his children. And I think that is a terrible indictment on the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, Kimberly, that's just so shocking. And James, I'm going to assume that is a yes from you too, because I know how strongly you feel on these matters. Kimberly Kitching and James Paterson, thank you both so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.